Hello everyone, welcome to Property Finance with Lee. Today we're going to talk about the current state of the Australian property market. If you're new to the channel, I'm a licensed mortgage broker with an extensive property investment background. I talk all things property financing and investing. If you're interested in watching more from me, subscribe, turn on notifications to keep up with my latest content. In last week's video, we looked at the latest inflation figures, which seem to be very stubborn, the comments made by the RBA Governor Michelle Bullock, and how the banks reacted. At the end of the video, I explained that all these things point to a rate rise on Melbourne Cup Day tomorrow. I'm not unique in this opinion, the banks also share it. In fact, a few weeks ago, CBA and ANZ changed their position to now foreseeing a rate increase as well. What we're going to talk about today is what effect inflation and the current interest rate environment is having on the property market. Let's jump in. I think it's no secret to anyone that the property market everywhere seems to be on an absolute belter. But today I want to single out Perth, which has outperformed every other capital city so far this year, with property prices climbing 10.9%. This figure is more than 5 times the historic average of growth generally experienced in Perth. In this quarter alone, prices have increased 3%. If this growth maintains the momentum seen over the last quarter, Perth prices are on track to close the year 12% up. There is such an imbalance of supply to demand right now in Perth that according to the Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, last month the median time on market was just 8 days. This set a new record and was nearly twice as fast as the 15 days recorded in October last year. As excellent as house prices seem to be performing right now, this last quarter, they were outperformed by unit prices, which increased 3.3%. This hasn't happened in Perth since 2021. People talk about international migration putting pressure on property prices, and it does to an extent. But in my opinion, international migration puts more pressure on the rental market than it does property prices. If you think about it, most arrivals in the country rent and build a financial footing before they purchase something eventually. Interstate migrants, however, do have a larger proportion which are cashed up and ready to buy, which in my opinion does impact property prices greatly. A lot of what is happening in Perth, and to a lesser extent Brisbane right now, seems to come from the fact that there is very strong interstate migration flowing into WA and Queensland. Have a look at this graph from the ABS. We can see that there are no other states which have the sort of interstate migration that these two are experiencing. The record level of international migration has also led to crazy inflation in the WA rental market. Although the greatest increases in advertised rents over the past year have been seen in Sydney, which makes sense considering the graph we just looked at, this was closely followed by regional WA with a 16.7% year-on-year increase and Perth itself with a 14.9% year-on-year increase. Considering the lower median house prices than what you typically get on the East Coast and the strength of the rental market there at the moment, if you're in Sydney or Melbourne and are having difficulty trying to purchase an investment with your borrowing capacity, perhaps researching the Perth market isn't such a bad idea. Some of my own clients come to mind. I have a few that have around 200k in their self-managed super fund, and I know I can get them financed for properties around the 600 to 650k. At this price point, Perth is probably worth having a look at. Despite the record growth, it still seems affordable over there. For much of today's video so far, we've talked about the demand side of the equation. However, what about supply? We know there's a huge amount of demand for both purchases and rentals, so why isn't the market filling the void? Looking at what's happening nationally, we can see from this CoreLogic graph from August, just a couple of months ago, dwelling approvals are down 21% below the decade average. You had the government coming out and saying they wanted to build 1.2 million homes. That sounded great, but this was never ever going to happen. Everyone with half an idea knew it. And what's worse is, the number of homes being built isn't even meeting the amount required for the international migration we talked about earlier. We know that since this ABS data was released, there has been more major home builders which have gone into liquidation. How is this possible with record demand? The cause is due to the nature of construction projects. They demand substantial financial investment and narrow profit margins. Most building agreements consist of fixed price building contracts. Thanks to inflation, builders have had cost blowouts past the tight margins they accounted for, with no means to pass the cost on to the customer. This has also been coupled with skyrocketing employment costs due to record low unemployment rates. All these factors have translated to costs which are astronomical, making people hesitant to invest and finance building projects. One bit of good news though is that the Cordell Construction Cost Index trend indicates that growth in construction costs have now stabilized. So although they are still astronomical, they at least aren't growing at the crazy pace we witnessed at the end of last year. All this is great news if you already own a property, as I don't see supply meeting demand anytime soon, which means your rents will only grow. For those of you on the sidelines trying to enter the property market, guys, look in a cheaper suburb, engage a buyer's agent, speak to your mortgage broker about how you may be able to increase your borrowing capacity. Getting into the property market isn't going to get easier anytime soon. The truth is, the RBA and this government are trying to beat inflation without delivering a recession. The government's strategy is to increase the amount of immigration to pump up our GDP figure. It's basically creative accounting to con the voter into thinking they're doing a great job. And please, don't take this as a political statement. Both parties do this. I'm simply telling you so you have an understanding of what their strategy is and where it's heading. If you're sitting on the sidelines and you're unsure of how much, or even if you can borrow, contact me from the details below. I'm more than happy to work out your borrowing capacity free of charge. My passion is helping people achieve their financial freedom through property. You know, history has taught us that over time, purchasing a property only gets more difficult. Don't waste your time thinking about it. Even if you think you may not be able to borrow, call me up, and at worst, let's put a plan in place to work towards it. To the other 35% of us out there with a mortgage, like I said last week, I think tomorrow we'll see a quarter-point hike to the cash rate. There's still some very competitive products out there. You would be surprised what kind of a rate you can get. If you want a free home loan health check to see if you're on the best rate at the moment, feel free to contact me from the details below. And like always, if you got value out of this video, please drop it a like. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. Catch you next time. Thank you.